What if the world's greatest financial street began not with skyscrapers and trading floors, but with beaver pelts, fur traders, and colonial fort walls? In the early 17th century, things were really starting to heat up everywhere. A small Dutch settlement at the southern tip of Manhattan Island would sow the seeds of what centuries later would become Wall Street. This is the dawn of trade, empire, and finance. From the trading posts of New Amsterdam to the global powerhouse of modern markets. Welcome to the story of how money and power first met, and how a narrow street called Wall Street got its start. In 1609, the ship Have Mayen sailed into what is now New York Harbor, under the command of Henry Hudson for the Dutch East India Company. This voyage would mark the first Dutch claim to the region. By the early 1620s, things were really starting to heat up and change. The Dutch West India Company, a commercial enterprise as much as a colonial power, was granted a charter to establish a settlement in the region the Dutch called New Netherland. In 1624-25, 30 Walloon families arrived and settled on the southern tip of Manhattan. In 1626, the settlement of New Amsterdam was formalized. When the Dutch claimed the land from indigenous peoples, it was not grand architecture or royal ambition that drove the settlement, but commerce. The Dutch were drawn by the fur trade. Beaver pelts from the Hudson Valley were highly prized in Europe for felted hats and luxury goods. Furs were traded with native tribes. Europeans rolled in with trade goods, turning the settlement into a buzzing trading post and a lively commercial hub. Trading posts of Fort Amsterdam, warehouses and docks line the shoreline. Over time, settlers built houses and mills. Sawmills, the first wind-powered sawmill on Governor's Island in 1626, is a sign of the economic ambition. Even the street grid of modern Lower Manhattan carries traces of this early Euro canals, narrow lanes, trade warehouses. For example, Beaver Street was named for the beaver pelts trade. So from the beginning, the site that would become Wall Street was about trade, about value, and about commerce. By the 1640s, the Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam confronted challenges. Threats from indigenous nations, rival European powers, and internal growth. To secure the settlement, a wall was constructed across the northern boundary of the town, from river to river. That wall, though built for defense, eventually lent its name to what became Wall Street. The wall stood for only a short time, yet the street that followed its path outlived the fortifications and became one of the most important thoroughfares in the financial district. Street maps like the Costello Plan 1660 show the fort at the tip of Manhattan, the grid of streets, and the northern wall line. As the colony matured, the southern tip grew into a vibrant trading area. Warehouses, docks, commerce with Europe and Africa, and the Dutch, English, Scandinavian settlers, and enslaved Africans all mingled in the trading economy. The Dutch West India Company not only traded furs, also processed timber, had sawmills, and used enslaved labor to build the infrastructure of the settlement. So Wall Street's origin lies in this mix of colonization, commerce, and the desire to exploit value. Whether fur, timber, land, or labor. New Amsterdam was a pretty unique place back then because it had a lot of different people living there. French-speaking Walloons, Germans, English, Scots, Africans, Dutch, and native peoples all played roles in its commerce. One of the early recorded non-native inhabitants was Juan Rodriguez, often Jan Rodriguez, a merchant of Portuguese, Spanish descent who traded on Manhattan in 1613-14. Trade in New Amsterdam was not just local, it linked into the Atlantic world. Beaver pelts, dyed fabrics, timber, shipping, slave trade, and European goods. The colony's economy was integrated into global supply chains even then. This commercial foundation is critical because when you build trade, you build markets, and when you have markets, you need rules. Brokers, agreements, and that's the foundation of Wall Street. As the settlement grew, merchants gathered informally to exchange bills, promissory notes, goods, and services. These early forms of brokerage would anticipate what came later: trading in stock, services, and value. Thus, the stage was set: a trading post on Manhattan, a wall for boundaries. Merchants and brokers trading value, the rudiments of Wall Street's dramatic journey. In 1664, the English seized New Amsterdam and renamed it New York. Under the Duke of York, the Dutch briefly retook it in 1673 to 74, but ultimately it stayed English. Under English rule, the area's commercial role only expanded. The early Dutch street grid remained. The city's European and Atlantic commerce accelerated. In 1792, a landmark event took place under a sycamore tree beneath the elemental Wall Street Strip. 24 brokers met and signed what became known as the Buttonwood Agreement, pledging to trade securities in an organized way. This moment symbolized the transition from informal colonial trade to the organized stock exchange. Wall Street, which began as a settlement of trade, now benefited from securities, shares, listings, corporate trade. The street that once ran along a fort's wall was now host to brokers, speculators, and money in motion. The transformation from trading posts and pelts to stocks and shares is remarkable. Why does this matter? Because the values and structures created in New Amsterdam echo through to today's finance. The idea that trade can create value independent of goods, beaver pelts, timber, land began here. The idea of merchants trading claims, promissory notes, future value also here. Wall Street's earliest origins show us that finance isn't just modern. It's been around for centuries. The patterns of power, commerce, infrastructure, and diversity were forged at the tip of Manhattan. When you walk down Wall Street today, you walk on ground where furs, timber, bricks, slaves, merchants, and early brokers each left a mark. From the forts at the Battery to the skyscrapers of the financial district, the journey of money and power continues. The birth of Wall Street was not a grand throne room, but a fur warehouse, a trading post, a colonist's house, and a merchant's ledger. Next time, we'll follow the evolution, how the stock exchange emerged, how railroads and speculation reshaped the street, and how crashes tested the very fabric of finance. If you enjoyed this story of the birth of Wall Street, subscribe for the next chapters of Money and Power, and join us on the journey from trading posts to skyscrapers. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, value is born where commerce meets courage.